Well, well, well. Here we are. I am making another Oscar prediction update video. Usually it doesn't take me this long to do this, but I do have a good excuse. I wanted to wait until after I had seen both Oppenheimer and Barbie. And now that I have seen both films, I have quite a lot to say, not just about them, but about a lot of the news that has happened. On top of seeing the Barbenheimer double feature, I've also seen Past Lives, and I've seen the growth of support for Spider-Verse as a Best Picture contender. But on top of all of that, the SAG strike, on top of the WGA strike, and what this could potentially mean for the future. The fact that Challengers, which had a trailer and a release date, has been delayed to next year, that was a big moment. And it got a lot of people to ask, what does this mean for certain other movies? Could Color Purple be delayed? Could Dune Part 2 get delayed? I don't know, but it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility. So, as of right now, what I've decided is that I'm basically going to remove from my predictions any movie that was already on the precipice of being delayed, something like The Book of Clarence or Foe. Both of those I have decided to take out. Um, now, uh, the other stuff, basically anything without a trailer or official release date, I'm basically decided to take out, with some exceptions because I wanted to fill out the nominees. But in terms of predictions, I will say it's entirely possible that bigger things get taken out, but I'm going to try to not think about that too hard. So there's a lot to talk about and not a lot of time. So let's just jump right into this. Best documentary feature, I have almost nothing to say regarding this. The one thing that I will say, I found out as I was getting ready to record this that The Deepest Breath is one of the top documentary contenders I have here, is currently on Netflix. I plan on seeing this just as soon as I get done with the recording. But it'll be fun to try and keep up with the documentary contenders of the year. So check out that one if you want to. Outside of that, not much else has really changed. In the category of international feature, okay, so The Boy and the Heron, that is the Miyazaki film that was previously known as How Do You Live? For the record, I don't really love the new title, but that's not my decision. I did take out Monster from the top 5 because I think either both films are Japanese, so Japan can either submit The Boy and the Heron or Monster. And for the record, Japan has submitted Miyazaki's films before with Porco Rosso and Princess Mononoke, not Spirited Away, curiously enough. I do think from these early reactions that the film can be a contender for international feature, which is why I'm thinking that they will submit it. I don't think it's going to contend for picture, mainly because Spider-Verse has gotten a lot of thunder, and I think is going to steal the animated feature momentum. But I think this nomination is going to, in international feature specifically, is the win for Miyazaki. El Conde, by the way, I don't know why I wasn't looking into that earlier, but that is a new film by Pablo Larraín that's black and white about vampires, so that could be a contender as well. But maybe they don't like I don't know. They like the name recognition of Pablo Larraín, but genre has always been an issue at the Academy, so we'll see. I still think Zone of Interest is the frontrunner, but if it doesn't hit with enough people, then Anatomy of a Fall will be the frontrunner. Either way, one of those two movies, at least one, is going to be a Best Picture nominee. I feel fairly confident in saying that. Animated feature. Well, now is as good as time as any to talk about the whole situation with Across the Spider-Verse. So I mentioned last time that there were people really trying to make the case for this as a Best Picture contender, and because I've been burned so many times by the prospect of animated films getting into Best Picture, I was trying to ignore that and trying to not listen to it, but something has happened that I cannot ignore. The HCA Mid-Season Awards, which award films from the first half of the year, were widely expected to give their Best Picture and Best Director prize to Past Lives, which was obviously very well nominated in this court. It was the predicted winner, but it lost both to Across the Spider-Verse. And for Spider-Verse to win picture is one thing. For it to win director, an animated film won director over Celine's Song. When I saw that, it was like that quote from Django Unchained. You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen. I think it can. The fact that it is very much a part one and that it has not a very conclusive ending, plus the fact that the sequel is supposedly coming out next year, and maybe people could be excited for that one, be like, oh, we'll reward the third one. This isn't a guaranteed sure thing, but if the third film gets pushed, which is very possible, that could help Spider-Man. And if other top Best Picture contenders get pushed, that could help Spider-Man. So I'm starting to believe more and more that this is actually going to happen. Now, so you'll see me bring up Spider-Verse in a couple other categories. Keep all of that in mind. You might be surprised that I have Nimona at number 2, but really, Spider-Verse is so far ahead at this point, I don't really know if it matters what number 2 is. And I do think Nimona is definitely getting nominated, having seen it. I think it's going to speak to enough people, and the narrative behind it, how it was almost canceled, is certainly going to help. Boy and the Heron I have getting on. Wish. I still have faith in Wish. Not everybody does. Of course, it could get delayed like everything else. We don't know. It would be pretty wild if both Wish and Elemental miss. It would be only the third year that Disney and Pixar are not represented in the animated feature category. And the first was 2005, when Pixar didn't have anything and Disney had Chicken Little. And the second year was 2011, when Disney had Winnie the Pooh and Pixar had Cars 2. So it doesn't happen very often, but I guess it would be possible for us to get 2 years in a row where Disney... No, not 2 years, because I don't know what I'm thinking. But it's possible that Disney misses in this category. Okay, Chicken Run, this is the first time I'm adding that because they do love Aardman. And Ninja Turtles, I'm curious about because they don't usually go for movies based on pre-existing IPs, especially television shows, but the movie does look pretty good, so maybe we shouldn't write it out. So, Best Sound. Now, as I mentioned at the top of this video, I have now seen both Oppenheimer and Barbie. And one of my big takeaways is, if we still had 2 different categories for sound, then I would probably be predicting Oppenheimer to win Best Sound Mixing and Dune Part 2 to win Sound Editing. As it stands, I think the sound category is very, very close between those two, and I'm going to give the slight edge to Dune because they had to create more sounds for the sandworms and stuff, but Oppenheimer, do not write that out as a threat to win. I still have Color Purple and Killers of the Flower Moon, and Across the Spider-Verse, I realized if I'm going to have it in Best Picture, I need to also have it in some tech categories to justify it, and this is one where it makes a lot of sense for it to show up. Now, although Zone of Interest also uses sound in interesting, plot-impactful ways, so don't write that out either. Moving on to Best Original Song. Now, this is a big deal. I just got back from my Barbie screening today, and I'm going to make a statement right here now. I think Barbie has the potential to be the first movie since La La Land to be nominated for 2 of its songs. I think I'm Just Ken is a big moment in the movie and a very funny moment in the movie, and Ryan Gosling really nails it. But then What Was I Made For, the song, I think that one should be winning personally. But the fact that Billie Eilish just won this category relatively recently, it's close. I think both songs are gonna contend, and it would be very excited to see both of them make it on. I also want to shout out Quiet Eyes, which is the end credit song of Past Lives. I think that movie could do very well overall. It is a shame that Spider-Verse has so many different songs. Maybe they'll pick one, and if they do, then they can get that potentially get support for that one, but it's a little bit hard to say at the moment. For Best Original Score, oh boy, coming out of Oppenheimer, I was like, that's winning the Oscar. I'm pretty sure in this 3-hour movie, the score plays almost throughout the entire thing. It feels very operatic the way that it's used. It's just such an integral part of the film that I feel fairly confident. Hans Zimmer just won for the first Dune. I don't think he needs to win for Dune Part 2, and I think there's going to be enough of a narrative to get Ludwig Göransson the Oscar for Oppenheimer. But I do think Spider-Man and Past Lives can both contend in this category. I think the Past Lives score is very effective and helps that movie get along. Okay, anything else I have to say? Not really. I will just shout out Indiana Jones. I know people are not crazy about that score or movie, quite frankly, but never ever question John Williams, especially this far in his career. They're like, okay, how many Oscar nominations can we give this guy before time runs out? And I think they're very, very much in a hurry to do that. Yeah. Okay, so for best visual effects. Now this is kind of a funny category because it's significantly slighter than it usually is. Usually there's a bunch of big summer blockbusters in this category. But a lot of the summer blockbusters have disappointed with their effects, like Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible. People are not as impressed. So, Dune Part 2 is obviously winning, and I think Guardians 3 makes a strong case as a nominee. Everything else, I don't know. I think Poor Things has enough creative visuals that it might still contend here on top of the. Yeah, depending on how strong the overall love for that movie is. The Creator seems like okay, that's a solid lone VFX nominee, although Rebel Moon could also potentially take that spot. And then Spaceman is one that could be held back by the strike, but if it does come out, I'm intrigued. The whole thing with Across the Spider-Verse is I'm like, I really shouldn't be predicting it. Like, the only time the Oscars have ever nominated a 100% CGI movie in this category was The Lion King, which they tried to get around that by pretending it was live action. So, under normal circumstances, I would not be predicting Spider-Verse in this particular category. But the field is so weak, and the passion for the movie and the visuals of that movie are so strong that maybe this can actually happen. I mean, Soul did make the shortlist a couple years ago, so maybe they're not entirely opposed to nominating pure CG animated films here. Just, I'm not super confident, but I have it in right now. Best makeup and hairstyling. I still think Maestro, assuming it comes out, is the frontrunner in this category. Dune, Poor Things, A Different Man, all of these movies do very intriguing things with makeup, and I think Barbie is the hairstyling nominee. There's really not a whole lot to say. Oppenheimer, there's a world where that makes it on due to overwhelming love for the movie, but I think there is a limit to how many nominations it can get. And then for Best Costume Design. So I have Barbie number one. I don't think it's a sure thing. It really is going to depend on how well Dune or Color Purple are received. There is a world where those, and also how well Barbie is received overall, because maybe they're not super crazy about the movie and they won't want to give it 2 Oscars. I do want to say regarding Wonka, I thought for a long time that that movie was a surefire. It fit the classic mold of lone costume design nominee. After all, the Tim Burton Wonka movie was a lone costume design nominee, but this, I don't know. The trailer just didn't fully do it for me, and the fact that Timothy Chalamet's Wonka is so clearly a take on Johnny Depp, but the Hugh Grant Oompa Loompa is clearly doing the 1971 movie Oompa Loompa. It's two different aesthetics that don't blend well together. So, and I put the Hunger Games one there just for fun. None of the movies have been nominated, but maybe this is a nice makeup award for it. Best production design, one of the biggest locks, I think. I think we all knew Barbie was winning the moment that teaser trailer came out, and it became even more obvious with every passing look at the film. Having seen the movie, there's no feasible chance that this can lose. Even the scenes in the real world are so impeccably designed with the Mattel Industries. This is, I think, going to go down as one of the greatest production design winners in a long time. And the rest the rest of the top six are all very strong. It's difficult to tell. It's difficult to tell which one is going to have to be left out. I chose Color Purple for now, but yeah, I think Dune Part Two and Poor Things make a lot of sense as nominees, and the others, it's kind of a choice between 4, 5, and 6 about what order you want to put them in. And I left out Color Purple for now. Yeah, Asteroid City could make it on potentially, but the fact that they didn't even nominate French Dispatch is not a good sign for it. Okay, so best cinematography. So I I currently have Killers of the Flower Moon. I think that the new trailer for that has some really showy cinematography, but I think there's really strong work throughout the top five. I mentioned El Khan earlier. I put that in here because it's black and white, but you never know. I don't. This is the part when we get to the middle of the video with the tech categories where I have less to say, but I do like this top five. It does make a lot of sense to me. But Zone of Interest, watch out for it because there is a lot of talk with the way cinematography is used in that particular film. Now, for best film editing, I've decided to make Oppenheimer my number one for right now. This could change, but the editing is so impactful and so integral to the storytelling in that film. The fact that so much of the movie is composed of people standing in rooms talking, and it still feels as riveting as it is, largely due to the music, but also largely due to the editing. Now, the other contenders, okay, I think Dune's getting nominated. Killers of the Flower Moon, I know people are going to complain about that runtime, but I think it should still be in a good position to get on. And then I have Color Purple and Past Lives. Past Lives, again, having seen it, I think is going to be one of the stronger contenders of the year overall. And I think if it gets nominated in this category, that's very good. That's a very good sign in terms of what it can do in Best Picture. Yeah. Everything else, I actually don't think Barbie is in a great position here. Not that the editing is bad, but they would have to really love the movie. And then I put Spider-Verse in here at number 10. I don't no, I don't think it's happening. This is more of me just shining a bit of a light on, hey, this movie that you want to put in Best Picture and all these other categories, the editing really is the standout element, even if you don't want to see that because it's animated. So just reminding you that you can vote for it here. That is a possibility. Now, Best Adapted Screenplay is also interesting. So I'm gonna still choose to have Kills of the Flower Moon at the number one position, but having just done the Barbenheimer double feature, it's not impossible that either one of those wins as well. Oppenheimer, very much a talky movie and very dialogue focused, and if the movie is really embraced overall, which is possible, then it could win. I think it stands a very, very good shot at getting the nomination. Barbie, it's hard to say because people who don't like the movie, the script is one of the big talking points against it, but people who do love it are singling out the script, and specifically that one certain monologue that I'll get to in a moment. But I think Barbie is overall going to have enough support to get on. Dune Part 2, I was toying with for a while, but if the movie's going to be big, the first one got on, and this is wrapping up the story, so yeah, why not have it on? Now, Spider-Verse is interesting because I just feel like it would be weird for the movie to get nominated for picture and not screenplay. Given that it's animated, it would just feel wrong somehow. I don't know. It could still happen, but don't count out Poor Things or Zone of Interest either. I think there are some really solid contenders in this category. Unlike original screenplay. Okay, let's talk about this. Best original screenplay is so unbelievably weak this year, just from the look of it. Past Lives is so obviously winning. It's so far ahead of everything else that no one else really wants to compete. And before Challengers dropped out of this year, I was really considering putting it in the top 5 because it would be such a great narrative of these two partners who are married and nominated against each other. But that's not going to happen now. I still think Air, even if it gets nothing else, is likely to get on because of the narrative of where the writer came from. And then May December, I think so. I think so. It's got some nice reactions. People calling it one of the funnier movies of the year. Uh, Even if it's not what you would typically expect from Todd Haynes, and I don't know how far it's going to go in Best Picture. Now, The Holdovers. So we just got a trailer for that recently, and this is a movie that I have been denying for a long time. This is one of those Oscar contenders that I'm not really predicting as much as a lot of other people are predicting. And I get it, it's Alexander Payne, and Alexander Payne used to be a very big deal in the awards conversation, but he hasn't made a movie since Downsizing, which was a massive flop, and a movie that I couldn't stand personally, so I was very reluctant to predict that one. But I am now starting to think, especially in original screenplay, which is so weak, it could get on there. And then I put Maestro in there just because I didn't really know what else to put there. Anatomy of Fall is possible. Even Asteroid City is possible. And I do want to acknowledge Saltburn. This is the new Emerald Fennell movie. The reason why I don't have a lot of faith in that, as I've said before, is because Emerald Fennell is actually coming off a pretty massive flop, having written the book to Andrew Lloyd Webber's critically maligned and aptly titled Bad Cinderella. And I don't think that I think she's going to hit a bit of a sophomore slump in this one. Or even if she doesn't, if people surprisingly like the movie is still being labeled as a thriller at the end of the day, and Promising Young Woman, yes, that did get in Best Picture, but it was also so new, and it was COVID year, and I think we were kinder to that movie than we would have been if it hadn't been 2020 and COVID year. And then Drive Away Dolls just looks like an irreverent comedy. I know that the Coen brothers have surprised before, but this is only one Coen brother, and so somehow I don't have the highest of expectations for it. Now, Best Supporting Actor. This is where things get really interesting because having just gotten out of the theater seeing Barbie, I have decided to put Ryan Gosling at number 1. And I don't think he is a lock by any stretch, but I do think there is enough of a narrative. He is a very beloved actor. He's been in the industry for a while. He's been this ultimate heartthrob for a while, and people are really, really loving his performance and singling it out as one of the highlights of the film overall. Now, people are also singling out Robert Downey Jr., who is less prevalent in Oppenheimer but has a very showy scene near the end, and could potentially be a threat for the win as well. There's also Robert De Niro, who is great in Killers of the Flower Moon, and John McEnroe, who does so much good work in Past Lives. I think the top 4 here is really strong, and I expect that it will stay the top 4 for a while. I'm not entirely sure who comes out winning. Maybe it's because I just saw Barbie and there's recency bias, but I'm seeing so much support for Gosling in particular, and I do think he can charm enough people, especially if they let him actually campaign for this, depending on what happens with the strike. He can charm enough people to potentially waltz his way right to the Oscar. And then everyone else, I don't know, I've moved Dafoe out of there just because it's just expected to put Dafoe in there, but he could still get on, as could a lot of these other people. Now, Best Supporting Actress is interesting, because I still have Lily Gladstone, I still have the 2 women from Color Purple, and Viola Davis does make sense, although there is a world where she gets moved out. I just keep thinking back to Woman King and what a big snub that was, and how people are anxious for the chance to make it up to her. So I think she will get nominated here. And then I have Emily Blunt, and I don't feel great about it. I feel like the movie is going to be widely embraced overall, but one of the criticisms of it is that Nolan has never been great at writing female characters, and that is prevalent in Oppenheimer and the writing of Blunt's character. She does get a few standout moments, but I'm not really sure if it's going to be enough. Then again, the fact that Blunt has been in the industry for so long and she has yet to earn an Academy Award nomination, there is enough of a narrative for her to bring her along if the movie's getting nominated everywhere else. I do want to take a moment to highlight America Ferrera in Barbie, because for those of you who've seen the movie, her big monologue in the third act is being singled out by a lot of people as possibly the standout moment of the entire movie. And a lot of that is because of Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach and the screenplay and the way it's all written. But America Ferrera, honestly, that monologue could potentially catapult her all the way to an Oscar nomination. I'm not bold enough to predict it just yet, but it could happen. Also, I believe if the top 4 in this category are nominated and the last slot, instead of Emily Blunt, goes to Ferrera or Randolph or Lynch, that would be the first acting lineup entirely composed of people of color, which would be pretty extraordinary to see. So just wanted to throw that out there. Now, in the category of Best Actor, so I still have Bradley Cooper, but that, in all honesty, could change. There is the world in which Cillian Murphy wins this. I think DiCaprio is undeniably getting nominated no matter what happens. And then I've added Giamatti, and I don't know, it feels weird to add him, but I'm not really sure how well Coleman Domingo or Kingsley Ben-Adir, I don't know how well those biopics are going to be received overall. So I don't know if they're going to go along with it. They very easily could, but I don't know. And I will quickly mention Napoleon here because that trailer also came out in the time. Looks very much like it could be a Bubble Awards contender, but we aren't sure. I'm keeping it in 6 through 10 in a lot of categories because I'm just not sure. I'm also not confident about Ferrari either, but I just wanted to throw that in there just so you know that I am aware of this movie. Now, for Best Actress, I still have Fantasia Barrino winning this because that is such a juicy role, but things could change. I think Greta Lee is in the conversation depending on how well Past Lives does. And I think Emma Stone's very likely. I am surprised the amount of people that don't think Margot Robbie is going to contend for Barbie. It feels weird. If you're going to predict the movie to do well everywhere else, why would you not predict Robbie to go along with it? She is the face of the movie and she has this big arc. I think she's very, very good and likely to be nominated. The funny thing is, there was this Oscar trivia tidbit for years that Jeff Bridges in the movie Starman is the only person to be nominated for an Oscar for playing a definitively non-human character. And if Robbie and or Gosling get nominated, then Bridges will no longer be the only person to hold that distinction. So that's a fun bit of trivia for you. Sandra Hüller I have added, and it feels weird. Obviously, I'm seeing the praise for her performance, and I fully believe it. But the Academy does not always go for foreign language performances, especially if the person is not an established actor in the US. But we will see how it shakes out. Portman could make it, Lang could make it. I still have Annette Bening in the 9th spot, even though I'm not confident that that's coming out. But honestly, by this point, I was starting to run out of contenders. That's why Halle Bailey is still there. I don't think she has any serious shot of happening whatsoever, but I still want her to get the Golden Globe nomination. That's all I really care about at this point for her. Now, for Best Director, oh boy, talk about tough competition. So, I originally had Jonathan Glazer in that 5th spot for Zone of Interest. I'm like, this is the international director slot. We just come to expect that one slot goes to a director who's not making a film in English and is making the international feature frontrunner. We've just come to expect that by this point. And so I had a Glazer in my number 5 slot, as a lot of people did. And then I saw Barbie, and I'm like, damn it. I can't not put Gerwig in there. I just, considering how flashy the work is, what a visual spectacle the movie is, and the whole themes of the movie about women inclusion, it would feel so wrong to not have Gerwig there, even though she's not the only woman in contention. I think Celine Song is very much in contention. But Denis Villeneuve is not going to miss. Like, they owe him one. And then it would be absolutely shocking for either Scorsese or Nolan to miss, considering how well the movie is going to do overall. And Past Lives, as I'm about to get to in just 1 second, has a very good shot of going all the way, which is why I feel pretty confident predicting Celine Song to get on. But the trouble is that if I'm not predicting Jonathan Glazer to get in for Best Director, then I realize I'm only predicting Zone of Interest for 2 nominations, International Feature and Picture. And that feels wrong, but I guess it's possible. I don't know. I really wish there were 6 slots in Best Director. Can we not just do that one year? Because looking at this top 6, one of these people is not going to make it, and whoever that is going to be someone incredibly talented and deserving, and it's going to be a real shame. Sorry, Yorgos Lanthimos and everyone else, but I just can't make room for you. It's too tight. And I will mention here the 3 directors of Spider-Verse who would be deserving, and if the movie's getting so much love and so much love for the visual spectacle of it, the thing is, on top of the fact that no director of an animated movie has ever gotten on, no group of 3 directors ever have. We've had directing duos get nominated and 1 win last year. We've never had a directing trio. I don't think it's impossible, but I mean, putting in the top 10 is a reach, and then you look at how strong the top 6 is, and I just feel like the final list of 5 is going to be composed of the top 6. So, yeah. Let me jump now to the end of the line with Best Picture. So I remember coming out of the theater after seeing Past Lives and thinking to myself, that could win Best Picture. I'm not saying it will, but it can happen. There is enough passion for the movie. It is a really powerful film that seems so simple on the surface and yet is so complex once you really start to think about it. It makes you think, it makes you feel. It's so incredibly emotionally impactful and so well done, and it's got the little indie that could narrative behind it. But it's not a sure thing. It just felt like a safe number 1 for now because of the level of passion behind it. I think this can win, but I'm not saying it will. I'm looking at some of the other contenders here. Both Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer are possible. I'm thinking back to what I said at the very beginning of the year, that in the aftermath of Everything Everywhere, maybe they're going to want to give it something a bit more traditional. And I do think both Killers and Oppenheimer are very traditional Oscar bait type movies made by acclaimed directors, and they're both working to get a lot of nominations. I still have Past Lives because it has that indie underdog aspect to it. But, okay, Oppenheimer, for one, I find myself hesitant to predict that to win Best Picture, mainly because it's such a bleak film and they like to give it to something that has a little bit of the feel-good quality. I obviously haven't seen Killers, but with a title like that, I can't expect it's an upper. But Dune Part 2 is possible if they really stick the landing and give people a thrilling, fun experience. Color Purple, not exactly the most fun story, I will grant you, but it is a musical, so it's going to make people feel things. So then here's where things get interesting. Barbie, obviously, I just got back from seeing this movie, and I think it's very, very good. But there is a question about whether or not I've seen people doubt this can get nominated. I think it can, because I think this is going to have very, very strong box office support, and it's already one of the most talked about movies of the year. It's going to continue to be that. I know that not everybody loves it, but the people who do love it are really, really gunning for it, and, not every single Best Picture nominee is universally acclaimed. There's always that one that's at least a little bit controversial. And I think most of the controversy is going to die down. To be perfectly honest with you, I think this movie's going to do very well. But with that said, I do think the naysayers, there's just enough detractors for this movie that I don't think it has a realistic shot at winning Best Picture. Uh, I I feel bad for saying that, but yeah. Poor Things is very much a question mark. We don't know how well that's going to do. And Zone of Interest, I think, is going to be a solid nominee, assuming that it's the international slot. But again, if it doesn't get in director, then what happens? Across the Spider-Verse, I've talked at length about that. And the one thing that I keep needing to bring up is with the actors' strike, any future movies like Dune and Color Purple could get delayed. And there is a world where like enough stuff gets delayed, and that could help something like Spider-Verse get on. But I don't know if it really needs it. It's a little bit tricky, but I think it would certainly help Spider-Verse's chances if the more and more stuff get delayed. And with everything else, I don't know. It's curious to see what's going to happen with Air now. If stuff gets delayed, Air can easily slide up a couple of spots, and everything else, it's just so hard when we're on the precipice of. It's not unprecedented the strike because we've seen in 2020 what happens when everything gets delayed, and hopefully this won't be as barren as that year somehow felt. We've already got amazing films: Past Lives, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Spider-Verse. We've already seen those movies wide, and imagine something like Killers probably would get some sort of premiere even without the actors showcasing it. So I think no matter what, we're going to get a great Oscar year with some great movies. I just hope. I want to make it very clear that I stand in solidarity with the actors and the writers, and I hope they get everything they've asked for. Uh, and I hope that this strike can end reasonably early. But until then, I'm just gonna keep talking about movies and keep. I think the massive success of the Barbenheimer double feature opening weekend, as well as Mission Impossible, it's a great time to go to the movies, and audiences really are showing up in droves to see these films. And so I think it's gonna. I think assuming both Barbie and Oppenheimer get Best Picture nominated, then it's already a big success story in terms of people tuning in to watch the Oscars. And if Spider-Verse joins them, then things can get really interesting. I will say, anyone who toys with the idea of Spider-Verse being top 5 or win competitive, taking out the animated aspect, they're not going to give Best Picture to a multiverse movie 2 years in a row. That is just not happening. But I think I can see the nomination happening, and if it does get nominated, then maybe with the third movie we can potentially talk about that. But let's not jump the gun. I think that's everything I wanted to say, which is amazing because I feel like I went into this with so much to say, and then I feel like I talked for a very short amount of time, but it probably isn't once I start editing this. That's always how it works. Yeah, let me know what you think about some of these movies, and I will catch you soon. Maybe sooner than you think. Uh, on that enigmatic note, I will see you later.